Why did the bride make me sit in the kitchen at my son's wedding? I was supposed to be celebrating the happiest day of my son's life. You know, the kind of day you dream about from the moment they reborn, seeing them find their person, radiating pure joy, starting their own chapter. Instead, what I got was a front row, or rather, a back-of-house seat to a very different kind of celebration. I spent the entire reception on a hard, unforgiving folding chair in the kitchen. Can you picture it? Fluorescent lights humming with a sterile, almost clinical glare, the constant clatter of pans and dishes, the pervasive, inescapable smell of overcooked salmon clinging to everything, while the muffled sounds of toasts and laughter echoed mockingly through the thin wall. It was surreal. And here's the kicker. I wasn't sick. I wasn't running late. I certainly wasn't some uninvited guest trying to sneak in for a free meal. No, I am his mom. The woman who carried him for 9 months, who nursed him through chicken pox, who taught him how to tie his shoes and navigate the tricky waters of first crushes. The woman who, just hours before, had zipped him into his tux and brushed a stray hair from his forehead. And yet, there I was, relegated to the culinary purgatory. To this day, I still grapple with the question. Was it a genuine, albeit colossal, clerical mix-up? Or was it something far more insidious? A quiet, calculated act of cruelty, disguised as a seating arrangement? So today, I'm not just telling you a story. I'm walking you through every single awkward second of that day. Every forced, half-hearted smile from the catering staff who clearly didn't know what to do with me. Every moment I felt like a ghost haunting my own son's wedding. And yes, the moment I finally worked up the courage, my voice barely a whisper, to ask the bride directly, "Emma, was this your call?" Stay with me until the very end, because the answer I eventually got still, to this very day, keeps me wide awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying it all. It's a twist you won't see coming, and it speaks volumes about family, expectations, and the sometimes brutal reality of human relationships. All right, let's get a quick roadmap laid out for you, because this isn't just a tale. It's a journey through confusion, hurt, and eventually, a strange sort of clarity. Think of it as a 5-act play, each act peeling back another layer of this bizarre wedding day experience. Part 1. We'll go back to the morning of the wedding, when everything still felt utterly normal, filled with the usual pre-nuptial jitters and excitement. The air was thick with expectation, and not a single shadow of what was to come had dared to cross my path. Part 2. This is where the magic trick happens, but not the fun kind. This is the moment the seating chart, that seemingly innocuous piece of paper, performed a disappearing act on my name, vanishing it completely from the main event. The confusion, the disbelief, the creeping sense of dread will cover it all. Part 3. Welcome to the kitchen. What nobody, and I mean nobody, tells you about listening to your child's first dance, that most tender and iconic of wedding moments, through a swinging stainless steel door. The sounds, the smells, the isolation. It was an experience I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Part 4. The confrontation. This isn't a fiery shouting match, but a quiet, almost surgical dissection of what happened. I'll share it with you, word for word, because the nuances in that conversation were everything. Part 5. We'll fast forward to life after the cake was cut, after the guests went home, and after the secret finally, painfully, came out. What happens when the truth surfaces, and how do you even begin to pick up the pieces? If you've ever found yourself feeling invisible, sidelined, or utterly bewildered in your own family, if you've ever questioned your place, or wondered if you were somehow overreacting to a slight that feels monumental to you, then I see you. This story is for you. Grab a coffee, or maybe something stronger. Get truly comfy. And let's try to figure this bewildering, often painful, dance of family dynamics out together. Because sometimes, just knowing you're not alone in these bizarre experiences is half the battle. The day began, as most significant days do, with an almost ritualistic sense of purpose. I woke up at 6, precisely, the kind of early hour that screams either vacation or major life event. My first act, before even thinking about coffee, was to make myself a strong pot, the kind that could stand a spoon up in it. And then I sat down with my journal. It's a little quirk of mine, a habit I've cultivated over years of navigating life's big moments. I wrote the same simple phrase I write every single time nerves, or immense joy, or a potent cocktail of both, hit me. Today is about him. Simple, right? A mantra, a grounding force, a way to remind myself to step back and just bask in the happiness of my son, Ben. It seems so straightforward, so pure. My phone buzzed, pulling me gently from my morning reverie. It was Ben, of course. A text message, short and sweet. "Can't wait to see you in the front row, Mom." My heart swelled. The front row. That's where mothers belong, isn't it? A place of honor, of pride, of witnessing. I, being the functional adult I aspired to be, replied with a dozen heart emojis. Because sometimes, words just aren't enough to convey that overflowing maternal love. The next hour was a blur of preparation. I carefully zipped up the navy dress I'd bought months earlier, a classic knee-length number that screamed mother of the groom, elegant but not ostentatious. I checked my lashes in the mirror, ensuring they were perfectly fanned, a small but important detail for all the photos to come. Then, with a final spritz of hairspray that filled the air with its sweet chemical scent, the very smell of wedding mornings, I swear, I headed out the door and made my way to the venue. And what a venue it was. A grand, historic estate, perfectly manicured lawns, ivy clinging to ancient stone walls. Valets, looking impossibly sharp in their uniforms, whisked cars away with practiced ease, a ballet of luxury and efficiency. From inside, I could hear the faint, ethereal strains of a string quartet tuning up, each note a promise of the elegance to unfold. I swear, the air itself sparkled with anticipation, a palpable hum of excitement that seemed to vibrate through everything. It was, in a word, perfect. My first mission upon arrival was to find Ben. I spotted him outside the groom's suite, looking incredibly handsome, a little nervous, and utterly thrilled. I enveloped him in a hug, inhaling the scent of his cologne, a scent that somehow still reminded me of his childhood, albeit a more sophisticated version. He pulled back, a mischievous grin playing on his lips, and joked that his bow tie looked like a drunk butterfly. We laughed, a genuine, easy laugh that echoed the years of shared jokes and quiet understanding. We snapped a quick photo, a candid moment of pure joy, and he probably posted it instantly to Instagram. Everything felt right, exactly as it should be. Nothing, absolutely nothing screamed trouble. Nothing even whispered the word kitchen. The thought was so far from my mind it would have been laughable. Oh, if only I had known. The ceremony itself, absolutely flawless. Truly. From the moment Emma, radiant in her gown, walked down the aisle, to the heartfelt vows exchanged, it was everything a wedding should be. I cried exactly on cue, a quiet, dignified tear that traced a path down my cheek, a testament to the beauty of the moment and the overwhelming love I felt for my son. It was beautiful, emotional, everything I had hoped for. Then, as if on cue, the joyous procession migrated to the grand ballroom for cocktail hour. The energy was electric, a buzzing symphony of excited chatter, clinking glasses, and the soft strains of jazz music. I floated from group to group, greeting relatives, embracing old friends, basking in the glow of collective happiness. I found myself more than once retelling the charming story of how Ben, in his awkward preteen years, used to affectionately refer to his future wife as the girl with the polka dot bike, a story that always drew smiles and knowing nods. I felt like I was exactly where I belonged, a proud mother, a cherished guest. The coordinator, a young woman with a headset and an air of efficient calm, rang a delicate chime, signaling that dinner was about to be served, and it was time for guests to find their tables. The ballroom, moments before a swirling sea of mingling bodies, began to coalesce into smaller groups, each person scanning the meticulously arranged place cards. I joined the gentle throng, a slight smile on my face, ready to locate my spot. Table 6, I remembered. That's what they'd promised. A prime location near the sweethearts' table, close enough to feel involved, but far enough to allow them their space. I searched, my eyes scanning the elegant calligraphy. No card. A small flicker of confusion. I checked again, more carefully this time. Alphabetical order, clear font, my name, plain as day, should have been there. But it wasn't. My name was nowhere. The small flicker of confusion grew into a tiny spark of unease. I approached the coordinator, who was now expertly directing a small traffic jam of guests. Her brow furrowed slightly as I explained my predicament. She flipped through her clipboard, a thick stack of papers that seemed to hold the fate of the entire evening. "Must be a misprint, ma'am. Hang tight," she said, her voice a little too breezy. Then, with a quick, apologetic smile, she disappeared into the crowd, leaving me standing there, a lone island in a sea of joyful anticipation. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The champagne in my hand, once effervescent and celebratory, now tasted distinctly flatter, a metallic tang of uncertainty replacing its festive bubbles. My smile felt frozen, a mask I was struggling to maintain. People were beginning to settle into their seats, the clinking of silverware starting to punctuate the hum of conversation. I felt a blush creep up my neck, a mortifying sense of being forgotten, overlooked. Finally, she reappeared, her smile a little too wide, a little too fixed, almost stapled onto her face. It didn't quite reach her eyes. "We found you a spot. Follow me," she whispered, a conspiratorial tone that did little to ease my burgeoning anxiety. We began to weave through the now-seated guests, past my sister who gave me a quizzical look, past laughing cousins immersed in conversation, past the magnificent, towering wedding cake that looked like it cost more than my first car, a whimsical confection that seemed to mock my growing discomfort. And then, she veered sharply, not towards another table, not towards a quiet corner, but towards a set of swinging, industrial-looking doors, the kitchen doors. Doors I'd only ever seen staff use. Doors that clearly marked the boundary between the glamorous front of house and the utilitarian back of house. My stomach, which had been doing a slow churn for the past half hour, suddenly dropped like an elevator with snapped cables. A cold, hard lump formed in my throat. She pushed one open, the heavy door swinging inward with a whoosh of warm, savory air. Inside, it was a world of gleaming stainless steel counters, stacked trays of plated dinners waiting for their cue, and a single solitary folding chair. It was wedged unceremoniously between a towering crate of wine bottles and the imposing, rumbling presence of an industrial dishwasher. "Here you go," she chirped, her voice still unnervingly bright. The words hung in the air, a cruel echo. My entire world tilted. The sparkle of the morning, the joy of the ceremony, the warmth of the cocktail hour, it all evaporated, replaced by the stark, sterile reality of my new, utterly humiliating, assigned seat. I timed it, not on purpose, not with any malicious intent, but simply because time, in that moment, stretched and contorted in the most agonizing way imaginable. 47 minutes. 47 minutes of polite, strained nodding at cooks who, bless their hearts, clearly didn't know what to say to the mother of the groom sitting in their workspace. Their eyes would meet mine, full of a mixture of pity and awkwardness, before quickly darting away, back to their tasks. It was a silent, uncomfortable ballet of avoidance. Every so often, a server, laden with trays of appetizers or empty plates, would squeeze past my little corner, muttering a quick, hushed, "So sorry, ma'am," as they navigated the narrow space. Each apology, however well-intentioned, felt like another tiny stab, reinforcing the absurdity and indignity of my situation. It was as if I was an anomaly, a glitch in the perfect wedding matrix, and everyone around me was trying to politely ignore the glaring error. Through the thin wall, and more clearly when the swinging doors momentarily opened, I could hear fragments of the celebration, the distinct clink of silverware against china, signaling that dinner was well underway. The DJ's booming, overly enthusiastic jokes met with waves of laughter from the ballroom. And then, the swell of applause, a powerful wave that washed over me, signaling the end of the first speech. I knew immediately whose it was. My son's best friend, telling the inevitably embarrassing but heartwarming story of their freshman dorm flood. I pictured Ben, red-faced but grinning, beside his new wife. And I, his mother, was missing it. I tried to peek through the tiny, round window in the door, a porthole to a world I was meant to be a part of. All I caught were dizzying flashes of spinning lights from the dance floor and the blurred, raised arms of guests toasting. It was like watching a movie from behind the screen, a distorted, frustrating glimpse of a joy I couldn't fully access. My phone buzzed, a jolt back to the present. It was my cousin, a sweet woman named Sarah, who was clearly enjoying herself at a proper table. Her text read, "Where are you? They're about to do parent dance." My stomach clenched. The parent dance. The mother-son dance. The moment I had mentally choreographed 100 times in my head. The song we had chosen together. The slow sway. The quiet words whispered between us. My fingers flew across the keyboard. "In the kitchen, long story," I typed, the words bitter and raw. But then, a moment of profound hesitation. Pride. That strange, often irrational human emotion. If I sent that, if I told her, it would spread like wildfire. It would cause a scene. It would steal focus from Ben and Emma. And on their day, I couldn't do that. So, with a heavy sigh, I deleted the brutally honest confession. Instead, I typed, "On my way," a lie that felt like a betrayal to myself, though I had no clue how I was going to get out of this culinary prison without drawing even more attention. So, I stayed. I stayed and listened to the distant strains of their chosen song, a bittersweet melody that now felt like a dirge. I stayed and watched the catering staff efficiently plate desserts, their movements a stark contrast to the celebratory dance happening just meters away. And the kitchen, that sterile, functional space, now smelled not just of steamed green beans and industrial cleaner, but of something far more potent, far more corrosive: resentment. It was a bitter aroma that clung to my clothes, to my hair, and most painfully, to my heart. Each minute ticked by, a relentless hammer against my spirit, reminding me of all the moments I was losing, all the memories I wouldn't have, all because of that one lonely chair. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, but was probably closer to the end of the main course, the coordinator reappeared. Her cheeks were noticeably pinker now, whether from exertion or embarrassment, I couldn't tell. "We've cleared a seat at table 10. You can move whenever," she offered, her voice softer, almost apologetic this time. The damage, however, felt irrevocably done. But still, the offer of escape. I followed her back into the light, blinking a little, like some cave-dwelling creature emerging from its dark lair. The main ballroom, once a place of vibrant celebration, now felt overwhelmingly bright, almost blinding. I tried to re-enter the festive atmosphere, to paste a smile back onto my face, to pretend that the past hour hadn't happened. I smiled for photos, hugged Ben tightly, whispered congratulations, and told him absolutely nothing about my seating arrangements. The last thing I wanted to do was cast a shadow over his happiness. He was too caught up in the whirlwind of his wedding day to notice the slight tremor in my voice, or the faint, lingering smell of industrial cleaner on my dress. But internally, my head spun. The questions were relentless, a cacophony in my mind. Who? Why? Was it the bride, Emma, my new daughter-in-law? Had I somehow offended her? Was it Emma's mom, a woman I knew to be particular but never overtly cruel? Or was it me? Had I said something, done something, at the engagement brunch months ago? A casual comment, perhaps, that had been misinterpreted, amplified, and now resulted in this public shaming. The possibilities swirled, each one more painful than the last. That night, sleep was a cruel joke. I tossed and turned, replaying every interaction, every smile, every word, searching for a clue, a reason. The feeling of exclusion gnawed at me, a persistent ache. I knew I couldn't let it go, not for my sake, and certainly not for the sake of my future relationship with Emma and Ben. 2 days later, after much internal debate and rehearsing various scenarios in my head, I sent the text. My thumb hovered over the send button for a good minute, my heart thumping a nervous rhythm against my ribs. "Emma," I wrote, trying to sound casual, light, but firm. "Could we grab coffee sometime this week? I have a quick question about the seating at the wedding." I added a polite emoji, trying to soften the blow. She answered within seconds, almost too quickly, as if she'd been expecting it. "Sure, tomorrow, 4 o'clock at the Daily Grind?" My pulse, which had already been pounding like a frantic drum, now accelerated to a frantic gallop. I swear the walls of my quiet living room pulsed with the beat. The confrontation I had been dreading and secretly preparing for was finally going to happen. My stomach was a knot of nerves, but beneath it, a tiny spark of resolve flickered. I needed answers. I deserved answers. The Daily Grind, a charming little cafe with mismatched furniture and the comforting aroma of roasted beans, felt like the perfect neutral territory for what was about to unfold. We met there, precisely at 4. Emma, looking a little paler than usual, arrived first, already nursing a latte. I walked in, trying to exude an air of calm I absolutely did not feel. The initial moments were a masterclass in awkward small talk. I complimented her ring, catching the sparkle of the diamond as she nervously adjusted it. She, in turn, complimented my scarf, a simple cashmere wrap I'd chosen specifically to project an image of serene composure. We exchanged pleasantries about the wedding, about the honeymoon, about the return to normal life. It was like watching 2 actors, impeccably dressed, going through the motions of a scene, each delivering their lines, but with an underlying tension that was almost palpable. Neither of us truly invested in the words. We were both just waiting for the real conversation to begin. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of polite but utterly meaningless chatter, I took a deep breath, centered myself, and gently, but firmly, cut to the chase. "Emma," I began, my voice softer than I intended but steady. "I need to understand why I spent the entire reception in the kitchen." The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Her reaction was immediate and telling. Her cheeks, which moments before had been a healthy shade, flushed a vivid crimson. She set her mug down on the wooden table with a little more force than necessary, the ceramic clinking sharply against the surface. Her gaze darted away, avoiding my eyes. "I didn't know," she mumbled, her voice barely audible. My mom handled the chart. It was the classic deflection, the immediate finger-pointing, and it felt like a cold shower. But then, the tell. Her eyes, those beautiful, usually expressive eyes, slid sideways, just for a fraction of a second. It was that familiar, almost imperceptible shift that reminded me so much of Ben when he was a little boy, caught red-handed. He'd swear up and down he hadn't eaten the last chocolate chip cookie, even as crumbs dotted his chin, a telltale sign of his guilt. That tiny, involuntary movement spoke volumes. It told me she knew more than she was letting on. I pressed gently, not aggressively, but with a quiet persistence born of deep hurt. "The coordinator at the venue," I reminded her, keeping my tone even, "told me specifically that the change, the last-minute seating adjustment, came from the bride's family. The implication hung in the air. Your family, Emma. Emma swallowed hard, her throat visibly working. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken truths. Then she exhaled, a long, shaky breath, and the dam broke. "Okay, look," she started, her voice a little stronger now, but laced with an undeniable tremor. "My mom thought, she truly believed, that things might be tense between you and my dad." My eyebrows shot up. Her dad? What on earth? She continued, rushing the words out now, as if desperate to get it all out. "You both served on the school board way back in the day, right? And there was that bond issue vote. She just didn't want any drama." I blinked. I genuinely blinked, trying to process this information. That bond issue vote? That was 12 years ago. A lifetime ago in political terms. A mere blip on the radar of my memory. I barely remembered the details, let alone any lingering animosity. It had been a contentious vote, yes, but it was civic duty, not a personal feud. The idea that this ancient, dusty political disagreement was the reason for my banishment was so utterly absurd, so far-fetched. It was almost comical. Almost. Emma, seeing my stunned silence, continued, her voice now tinged with a defensive edge. "By the time I even saw the final printed chart, everything had already been sent to the printer. It was too late to change. And Mom was in a total panic. I figured one parent in the kitchen was better than my mom completely freaking out and potentially ruining the whole day." And there it was. The truth finally, unvarnished and painfully clear. It wasn't a clerical error. It wasn't overt malice. It was something far more common, far more insidious. Not cruelty, no, but pure, unadulterated cowardice. Wearing the delicate, deceptive perfume of avoiding drama and keeping the peace. It was a decision made out of convenience, out of a desire to sidestep a perceived, almost imaginary conflict at the expense of someone else's dignity and happiness. And that, in its own quiet way, felt even worse than outright malice. In that moment, sitting across from Emma in the bustling coffee shop, a strange calm settled over me. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. The raw, hot anger I'd rehearsed, the tears of self-pity I'd silently shed, none of it materialized. Instead, a quiet, almost surgical clarity took over. My voice, when I finally spoke, was steady, devoid of emotion, which surprised even me. "Emma," I said, looking her directly in the eye, letting the weight of my words settle between us. "Next time, choose kindness over convenience. I missed my son's first dance." The impact of those words was immediate and profound. Her eyes, which had been darting around, suddenly welled up. The carefully constructed composure she'd tried to maintain crumbled. A single tear escaped, then another, tracing paths through the faint blush on her cheeks. She stammered, genuinely distressed now, and apologized. Not once, but 3 times, a cascade of genuine remorse. She promised to write me a handwritten note, a tangible token of her sincerity, and swore, absolutely swore, that she would fix it. She would ensure nothing like this ever happened again. And then, in a moment that felt both forced and strangely, authentically human, we hugged. It was stiff, yes, a little awkward, but it was real. A fragile olive branch extended, a first tentative step towards repair. I could feel the tension in her body, the lingering shame, and perhaps a dawning understanding of the depth of her misjudgment. I walked out of the daily grind, the clatter of coffee cups and the murmur of conversations fading behind me, and got into my car. I started the engine, but didn't drive away immediately. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, the silence of the car a stark contrast to the noise of the cafe, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I leaned forward, buried my face in my purse, and screamed. Not a loud theatrical scream, but a guttural, raw, soundless scream that vibrated through my bones, shaking my entire being. I screamed into the soft fabric of my bag so no one outside, no passerby, no fellow coffee drinker, would hear the profound anguish and humiliation that had been bottled up for days. It was a release, a visceral expulsion of all the hurt, the confusion, the feeling of being utterly dismissed. Healing, I've learned in the years since, is rarely cinematic. It's not some dramatic, sweeping montage set to inspiring music. It's far messier, far more mundane. It's a lot of driving home in silence, replaying conversations. It's reheating tea for the third time because you keep getting distracted by your thoughts. It's texting your best friend at odd hours. You up? Because you just need someone to listen, someone to validate the absurdity of it all. It's a slow, quiet process of piecing yourself back together, one small, imperfect step at a time. And sometimes it involves screaming into your purse in a parking lot. If anything in this tale feels even remotely familiar, being shoved aside, feeling like an afterthought, or wondering if you are somehow overreacting to a situation that feels like a gut punch, then you are absolutely not alone. Don't just sit with that feeling. Drop a same or a heart emoji, or even a full paragraph of your own story in the comments below. I promise you I read every single one. Your experiences matter. And if you're looking for more stories about the glorious, bewildering, often hilarious, and sometimes heartbreaking weirdness of family life, about those moments we all survive and somehow grow from, then do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, and it means you'll never miss the next chapter of these real talk adventures. We're building a community here, a place where we can share, commiserate, and find strength in our shared experiences. So join us, won't you? 2 months had passed since the coffee shop showdown, since the silent scream into my purse, since the initial shock and pain had begun to recede, leaving behind a dull ache. The silence from Emma hadn't been absolute, but it had been quiet. I hadn't received the handwritten note she promised, and a part of me, the cynical part, had begun to wonder if her apologies were just a momentary surge of guilt. Then, last weekend, a pleasant surprise. Ben and Emma invited me to brunch. Not a formal, sit-down affair, but a casual, relaxed meal at their favorite little bistro. The atmosphere was light, almost tentative, but there was an unmistakable effort being made. As we lingered over our coffee, Emma reached into her bag and handed me an envelope. It wasn't the handwritten note I'd been expecting, but it was something far more thoughtful, far more proactive. Inside, I found a beautifully printed photo of the three of us from the wedding morning, the one Ben and I had taken outside the groom's CES suite, our arms around each other, his bow tie indeed looking like a drunk butterfly. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy, untainted by the kitchen incident, a reminder of the love that was always there. Tucked behind the photo was a letter, not a quick apology, but a detailed, heartfelt explanation. She wrote about her conversation with her mother, about setting new boundaries, and about how she had already begun to rearrange future family events. Her promise was clear. Nothing like that would ever happen again. She even included a bulleted list of specific measures she was taking to ensure inclusive seating for all family members at any future gatherings. It was thorough, it was thoughtful, and it felt genuinely sincere. But the most unexpected gesture was yet to come. She also offered to pay for a weekend trip for just Ben and me, a mother-son do-over, as she sweetly put it. Her idea was for us to create a new, untainted memory, to reconnect without the shadow of the wedding hanging over us. We're currently looking at cabins in the mountains, dreaming of crisp air and quiet trails. There will be no white tablecloths, no frantic catering staff, and most importantly, absolutely no kitchens involved. Just pine trees, the scent of wood smoke, and the simple pleasure of pancakes for breakfast. It's a chance to rebuild, to reaffirm, to laugh without reservation. Will things be perfect? Doubtful. Life, especially family life, is rarely a perfectly smooth, unblemished canvas. There will always be bumps, misunderstandings, and the lingering echoes of past hurts, but they will be honest. And right now, in the messy, complicated, beautiful tapestry of our lives, honesty feels like enough. It feels like a solid foundation upon which we can truly build. It's not about erasing the past, but about acknowledging it, learning from it, and choosing to move forward with open hearts and a shared commitment to do better. And that, I've realized, is a powerful kind of healing. Looking back, with the benefit of hindsight and a hefty dose of emotional processing, there are definitely things I wish I'd handled differently. Not out of regret, necessarily, but out of a deeper understanding of my own worth and the importance of advocating for myself. These aren't just musings. They're hard-won lessons I hope can spare someone else a similar heartache. First, and this is a big one, I wish I'd asked to see the seating chart a week early. I remember the thought crossing my mind, a fleeting suggestion from my inner voice. But I quickly dismissed it, telling myself it was pushy, overbearing, the kind of thing a demanding mother-in-law would do. It's not. It's standard. In fact, it's a completely reasonable request, especially for a key family member. If you're watching this and you're the mom, dad, aunt, grandparent, anyone who plays a significant role in the couple's lives, ask. Don't hesitate. Don't let that little voice of self-doubt talk you out of it. And if you're the couple, be proactive. Share it. A 2-second email with a PDF attachment can literally save a lifetime of resentment, confusion, and hurt feelings. It's a small act of transparency that yields immense dividends in family harmony. Second, and this one still stings a little, I wish ID walked straight out of that kitchen the minute I felt disrespected. The moment that coordinator chirped, "Here you go," pointing to that solitary folding chair between the wine crate and the dishwasher, I should have stood up, calmly but firmly stated my position, and left. My pride, that strange, complicated emotion, told me to stay, to not make a scene, to not steal focus. But sometimes, making a scene is the exact right thing to do. Polite silence, I've learned, helps no one. It certainly didn't help me that day. It allowed the disrespect to continue, to fester. There's a fine line between causing unnecessary drama and asserting your boundaries, and I regret not having the courage or the clarity in that moment to step across it. Your presence, your comfort, your feelings are valid, and sometimes the most polite thing you can do for yourself is to politely, but unequivocally, remove yourself from a situation that diminishes you. Third, and perhaps most profoundly, I wish I'd remembered that my feelings deserve oxygen. Yours do too. For so long, especially as a parent, we're conditioned to put others first, to prioritize harmony, to be the bigger person. And while there's value in that, there's also a point where it becomes self-erasure. My silence in the kitchen, my reluctance to confront my initial attempts to simply get over it, these were all ways I was denying my feelings, the space they needed to be acknowledged, processed, and ultimately healed. Speak them. Speak them before they calcify into a bitter, unmovable stone in your heart. Speak them before they turn into resentment that poisons your relationships. It's not selfish. It's self-preservation. It's about honoring your own emotional landscape and creating a space where your experiences are just as valid as anyone else's. All right, let's get down to some brass tacks, because while my story is unique, the underlying issues, miscommunication, family dynamics, and the potential for unintended hurt are not. For anyone planning, attending, or simply navigating the complex social landscape of a wedding, here are some practical takeaways gleaned from my fluorescent-lit experience. For couples, you are the architects of your day, but also the guardians of your guests' comfort. Assign someone outside the immediate family, someone neutral and level-headed, to audit the seating chart for potential landmines. This could be a wedding planner, a trusted friend, or even a very detail-oriented cousin. They can spot those historical grudges, those awkward pairings, or those glaring omissions that you, in the blissful haze of wedding planning, might completely miss. A fresh pair of eyes, detached from the emotional baggage, can be invaluable in preventing a seating disaster before it ever happens. Think of them as your emotional minesweeper. For parents, don't be afraid to request a copy of the seating chart early. And here, as a pro tip, bring a printed version with you on the day of the wedding. This isn't about being controlling, it's about being prepared. If there's a discrepancy, you have something concrete to refer to. It gives you a basis for polite inquiry, rather than just vague confusion. A simple, "I believe I was slated for table 6, but my card is not here," is far more effective than a bewildered, "Where am I supposed to sit?" This small act of preparedness can save you a world of embarrassment and frustration. For planners, please, for the love of all that is celebratory, never, ever shove a guest among appliance cords, industrial dishwashers, or stacks of dirty dishes. This should go without saying, but apparently, it doesn't. If, by some logistical nightmare, you absolutely cannot find a proper seat in the main reception area, offer alternatives that still maintain a sense of dignity and inclusion. The bar area, a quiet corner of the foyer, a small, elegantly set table just outside the main room. Literally, anywhere. Public and comfortable is preferable to a back-of-house exile. You are in the business of creating beautiful memories, not inadvertent humiliation. And for everyone, remember that weddings, in all their glittering glory, magnify whatever's already cracked beneath the surface of family relationships. They don't create new problems. They simply shine a very bright spotlight on existing ones. That old, dusty political grudge, that unspoken sibling rivalry, that lingering resentment, it all comes out to play. Treat those cracks with light, with understanding, with open communication, not with spackle disguised as assigned seats or forced proximity. The goal should always be genuine connection and celebration, not just the appearance of it. A wedding is a start, not an ending, and how you navigate these delicate dynamics sets the tone for the relationships that follow. Even now, months later, after apologies have been made and olive branches extended, a persistent question lingers in the back of my mind. A quiet hum that refuses to be completely silenced. Was Emma's mom truly, genuinely scared of a dusty political grudge from 12 years ago, worried it would erupt into a full-blown ballroom brawl over a long-forgotten bond issue? Or did she just want me out of the family photos? Out of the spotlight? Out of the way? I'll never truly know the definitive answer. People, as I've learned, rarely admit to petty motives. They don't say, "I wanted to sideline you because I find you a bit intimidating," or "I just didn't want you too close to the action." No, they simply rebrand those less than flattering impulses as avoiding drama or keeping the peace. It's a convenient, socially acceptable shield for actions that might stem from insecurity, passive aggression, or simply a desire for control. The true, unvarnished motivation often remains hidden, even from themselves. What I do know, with absolute certainty, is this: kitchens are for cooking, for the bustling, behind-the-scenes magic of culinary creation. They are not, and should never be, for mothers. They are not for guests. They are not for moments of celebration or for quiet contemplation during a once-in-a-lifetime event. And knowing that, finally, is power. It's the power to assert my worth, to set boundaries, and to ensure that such a slight is never, ever repeated. It's the power to understand that my feelings are valid, and my presence is valued, regardless of where someone else might try to place me. It's a quiet, internal strength that, while born from a place of hurt, has ultimately made me more resilient, more vocal, and more fiercely protective of my own emotional space. If you've got a wedding horror story that rivals mine, or perhaps even better, a genius, witty, but firm way to handle tricky family dynamics and seating chart shenanigans, please scroll down and share it in the comments. I'm building a community here, a safe space where we can swap scripts for polite but firm comebacks, for graceful exits, and for strategies to protect our peace. Your wisdom is invaluable. And if you felt that kitchen chair with me, if you understood the sting of that fluorescent light and the smell of that overcooked salmon, then please, like the video. It helps others find these stories and know they're not alone. Subscribe for more real talk narratives about navigating life's most bewildering moments, and share this with anyone who needs a little permission to speak up, to assert their boundaries, or simply to know that it's okay to not be okay with being relegated to the kitchen. Thanks for watching. Let's all promise to put kindness, respect, and genuine inclusion at the head table from now on. Not just for the happy couple, but for every single person who gathers to celebrate.